Hello, history aficionados, and welcome back to the Alternate History channel. We're constantly peeling back the layers of our world's timeline, revealing the myriad of possibilities that lie beneath. If you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications on our latest explorations. Today we're journeying to the jungles and highlands of Southeast Asia, where the destiny of nations was determined not only by their people, but by colonial powers vying for control. The First Indochina War was a monumental clash, one that set the stage for global Cold War politics and the tragic Vietnam War that followed. But what if the outcome was different? What if the tables were turned and France emerged victorious? How would this change the course of Vietnam's future and the geopolitics of the region? Let's delve into this tantalizing what if and uncover the ripples of a French victory in Indochina. The late 1940s and early 1950s in Southeast Asia were characterized by fierce battles, shifting allegiances, and the echoes of World War II. One such region in tumult was French Indochina, encompassing Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. These territories, under French colonial rule since the late 19th century, sought independence, sovereignty, and the right to determine their own fate. While various factions and groups clamored for control and influence, it was the communist-led Viet Minh, under the leadership of Ho Chi Minh, that rose to prominence. Initially formed to combat the Japanese occupation during World War II, the Viet Minh swiftly transitioned their focus to resist the return of the French colonial administration post-war. For France, the stakes were high. Fresh from the devastation of World War II, the nation was determined to retain its colonies and restore its global prestige. Indochina was a vital piece in this colonial puzzle. As the conflict escalated, battles were waged in valleys, across rivers and through dense jungles. Yet, one battle stands out in the annals of history: the Battle of Dien Bien Phu. Historically, this prolonged confrontation resulted in a shattering defeat for the French forces, fundamentally altering the trajectory of the region and setting the stage for further conflict in the form of the Vietnam War. But let's imagine an alternate scenario. Suppose the French, drawing upon innovative military strategies, significant reinforcements, and perhaps a bit of serendipity, turned the tide at Dien Bien Phu. Their victory would not only bolster their position in Indochina, but would send shockwaves throughout the international community. The repercussions of a French victory in the First Indochina War would be profound and far-reaching. With a decisive victory at Dien Bien Phu, the French firmly re-established their foothold in Indochina. Morale amongst French troops soared, and the confidence back home in Paris saw a significant boost. This victory, symbolic and strategic, granted France greater bargaining power at the negotiation table. As news of the French victory spread, so too did its implications for the region. The Viet Minh, while facing setbacks, did not dissolve, but they were forced into a more defensive posture. The unity and momentum that had previously propelled them forward were now fractured. Internationally, the Cold War was in full swing. The United States, always wary of the spread of communism in Southeast Asia, welcomed France's victory. American financial and logistical support for the French campaign in Indochina intensified. The reasoning was simple: a French-controlled Indochina could serve as a bulwark against the spread of communism in Southeast Asia. The Geneva Conference, historically in 1954, which aimed to find a political solution to the conflict in Indochina, saw a more assertive France. While the historical conference culminated in the partitioning of Vietnam at the 17th parallel, this alternate outcome meant a more favorable deal for the French. There was no division. Instead, a unified but semi-autonomous Indochina under French oversight emerged. Ho Chi Minh, while still an influential figure, found his aspirations of a unified, independent and communist Vietnam temporarily thwarted. He turned to the Soviet Union and China, seeking increased support to continue the resistance. However, with the heightened American involvement and the region's strategic importance, both superpowers approached the situation with caution. Within Indochina, the French victory and continued presence led to the emergence of several factions. Pro-French loyalists, those in favour of complete independence, and communist sympathisers jostled for influence and control. While France celebrated its reasserted dominance in Indochina, it was clear that this was just the beginning of a new chapter. The dynamics of Cold War geopolitics, regional aspirations, and the ever-present shadow of the Viet Minh would continue to shape the destiny of Indochina. As the 1950s transitioned into the 60s, the world witnessed an Indochina profoundly different from our history. With France's triumph, Saigon became a bustling metropolis showcasing French influence, from architecture to cuisine. Streets lined with French-style cafes became popular meeting spots for intellectuals, politicians, and foreign diplomats. Vietnamese pho served alongside French baguettes became emblematic of this blended culture. However, beneath this facade of cosmopolitanism, tensions simmered. The Viet Minh, driven underground, evolved their tactics. They began focusing on urban warfare, sabotage, and espionage. An underground network emerged, reminiscent of the French resistance during World War II, which ironically, Ho Chi Minh himself had been inspired by during his time in Europe. The United States, buoyed by France's success, redirected its focus. Instead of the large-scale military involvement as seen in our timeline during the Vietnam War, they concentrated on establishing a robust CIA presence in Saigon. Their primary mission, to root out and counteract the Viet Minh's clandestine operations. China, under Mao Zedong, eyed this alternate Indochina with mixed feelings. On one hand, a stable region under French control limited the spread of American influence. But, on the other, the suppressed communist factions in Vietnam called out for support. The Sino-Soviet split's early inklings became even more pronounced, as both juggernauts had different visions for the region. Europe, meanwhile, took notice. The victory in Indochina was held up by conservative circles as evidence that colonial empires could adapt and persist in the modern age. Britain, grappling with decolonization issues in Africa and the Middle East, started diplomatic dialogues with France on collaborative strategies to maintain their overseas territories. However, as the 60s gave way to the 70s, it became clear that the idea of colonial empires was unsustainable. While France managed to hold on to Indochina for a while longer, calls for true autonomy grew louder. The global trend towards self-determination and independence could not be ignored. France, understanding this, began a gradual process of genuine decolonization. By the 80s, a fully autonomous and unified Vietnam emerged, its birth pains and trajectory different from our world, yet facing many of the same challenges of nation-building, reconciliation, and modernization. The spectre of the First Indochina War and its outcome became a cornerstone of this new Vietnam's identity, forever shaping its place in the global community. And so, as we close the pages of this alternative chapter in history, it becomes clear how monumental a French victory in the First Indochina War would have been. Such an outcome would not just reshape Vietnam's national identity, but reverberate across the corridors of global power, possibly altering Cold War dynamics, Southeast Asian geopolitics, and even global decolonization processes. It reminds us once again of the interconnectedness of historical events and the profound impact of seemingly regional conflicts on the broader canvas of global history. Thank you for joining us on this thought-provoking journey through a world where France held on to its last major Asian colony a little longer. We always appreciate your engagement, so don't forget to like, comment, and share your thoughts below. Until our next dive into the myriad possibilities of history, stay curious and keep questioning.